Good morning. Welcome to the Electrical Committee. It is Thursday, September 7th, 2023. Present today are Councilman Sprinkle and Councilman Clay. Also present are Public Works Director Troy Kruger, Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, and Electrical Superintendent Kurt C.J. Hawkinson. Got to throw the C.J. in.
Yeah,
Always be
works.
C. Troy, I'm going to turn it over to you to start as far as budget, and then you guys can work us through your projects operationally.
So the budget sheet that you have in front of you is the most current budget sheet that I have from the finance office. The only thing I really have to talk about today is operationally, we had a meeting with DGR and Kurt and Ray and I on our load management, just looking at how our system is set up and our peaks and where we want to go with our load management system. So we're using them to get. They actually have an engineer that works with load management specifically. So we're using him to get our best set up the best system that we can. We want to take recommendations from them and then go with that. So right now we're just in the process basically of getting information to them, our WAP information, our MRES information, our history. We got a 10-year history from MRES and forwarded that information to them, and then we've also forwarded our so they can get on our Landis & Gear system and start looking at it and kind of playing around with it a little bit. Metering wise, I don't think we've put in too many more meters. Ray's working on load management switches right now, so getting a few of those in so that we can make sure that they're operating correctly. And Kurt continues to do underground. Kurt, do you have anything to add?
I think at this point we're about 700 meters deployed in the town. With the DGNR, we'll probably consult them next year. The kind of our biggest thing that we want them there for is we don't want to be giving up when we don't want to be load shedding when we don't have to be or whatever. And that's something that we haven't been able to really nail down on the old system of what the kind of parameters were on there. And that's what we'll kind of talk to them more about, kind of say this is what it is on there. But yeah, Ray's been installing that. We did the power to the new Elevate building last week, got that up for them. And then yesterday we cut over kind of trip on the north side of the road right there, so we got that energized clear up to Trip and Plum, is it? And whatever that one is, Plum, on there. And so it's kind of where we're sitting right there. I don't have a full crew this week, so we're not going to do anything on Plum, but next week we're going to come back there and start finishing that up. I think should be done by the end of September, kind of the first part of October on there, and then that'll be kind of the end of our underground putting in this year, I guess, and then we're gonna change out poles for the rest of the year till it snows.
Get ready for this winter.
Yeah, something like that on there. So that's kind of what we got going on operationally, I guess.
You guys have any questions? You have any questions?
We probably talked about it a lot, but remind me, is there power usage in the city trending up? You talked about 10-year average or 5-year average. Are we trending up from that, or are we staying flat, or where are we at?
It's kind of plateaued. I mean, it's trying to think back on the numbers on it. It's kind of the kind of the same. They might have had a percent growth or something like that over the years. And some of it's kind of, you don't get the weather history with it too. So, I mean, that could be a variance in there too, but, yeah, it's kind of the same as it has been, the way it looked at it, as far as kind of the information that we got were our usage per month, per year on there, and they've been pretty consistent on them, so.
We dipped a little in like 18, 19, and 20. And then 22, 20, and then 22 we came back up. We're about right, about our daily usage is right back to where it was. That kind of goes hand with, we added on, the Shopko building got occupied again, the Taco John's got put in. There's somebody in the old Pizza Hut building again. So there's some businesses that came back, and so we're sitting about where we were in the past. Our daily usage is not really varied much. But like Kurt said, weather, winter affects us more than summer. We have a lot of baseboard, a lot of electric heat in this town. So last winter when we had that December 19th through whatever, we had some 20 below zero temperatures. That kind of stuff affects us more than the heat. We've had some cold stretches in the last couple winters.
I would have thought with more electronic apparatuses and whatever, our power would be growing, but maybe we've kind of hit that where everybody has an iPad computer, whatever, and that's not growing that much.
Yeah, I mean, this is, your house is probably doing more power on there, and so these numbers are kind of, I don't want to say weighted would be the correct way to say it, you know. The information that we got, it's really not gonna make that meter where Missouri River's coming off. You ain't gonna see it that much, you know, because it's taking the total load of the town, everything like that. I mean, you're gonna probably see like, oh, we got 20 houses that came in, it jumped us up a little bit type of a thing, and not just more of kind of that small thing. So it'd be small little things that people are adding in their house and stuff like that. I mean, yes, as a norm, as far as that goes, you know, just average person in their house, yeah, they're probably using more electricity today than they were, you know, 5-10 years ago too. So
That was my concern about the peaks. If we draw a 10-year average line here,
Yeah.
and this is where we're gonna try and control that, and then if our usage just goes up, and if we're holding the line and the demand goes up, how can we adjust that? But it's not really, you're not really seeing that.
not really, and that's the question. I don't know for as far as, you know, Missouri River. I'm assuming that they've got to change peaks, you know, yearly. I guess I've never asked that question because, I mean, they supply to towns that are growing, that are going to see that type of a thing, you know, on a yearly basis. You know, they might get a big business and 200 homes coming in where they'll start to see that type of thing. As far as the load control goes, the DGNR people said if you're implementing it 10 days in in a month, that's quite a bit on there. So that's kind of the information that we want from them. The stuff that I've dealt with in the past, it's totally different from this. I mean, we used up in Brookings, it was a load shed. We actually controlled it at the substations and drop voltage and stuff like that. And it was like a 3.5% drop on there. So that was kind of where our questions were leading, like, well, where are we dropping too much? Do we got enough out there? All those type of questions started to arise at that point, because we want to try to maximize sell as much power as we can to make money too without hurting us. So that's kind of where they're going to step in and help us and everything. So the study that they're putting together for us, they'll kind of have that, they'll have a trend as far as we see from the history, next year this, and this, and kind of give us a power outlay of how much we'll sell and stuff like that. It'll probably, I don't wanna say it'll probably be conservative, you know, it'll probably be more of a, worst case scenario type of thing, that he could be up there type of a deal, but
And most people don't even notice the load management, do they? Businesses or people. It's not-
I wouldn't think so on there, like, especially with your water heaters, I mean, unless it got turned on and everybody was home at that time, you know, and stuff like that, you'd notice it, I suppose, then, but 15 minutes, I mean, if your house is raising 5 degrees in 15 minutes, I mean, start looking into some insulation at that point, you know, that's quite a bit.
That's all you're shutting it off is 15 minutes.
That's what we're talking
Limiting.
about for heat and ACs and stuff like that, you know. So that's kind of another thing, that it's structured in levels too. So let's say we had the entire town was on load management, you know, just using this as an example, we wouldn't shut the entire town off. We would do in levels and then take it percentage wise to take us off that peak. Okay, that took us off, we don't have to do any more. Well, it's not working, it's gonna do another level and another level. And that's where they're gonna come in, they're gonna say, well, we want this amount of levels, there's gonna be some tweaking in it as far as getting that stuff set up so it works the best for us. But
So I always wonder, if you limit somebody's power and the temperature in their house rises 3 degrees, 5 degrees or whatever, then it kicks on, you're gonna burn power, run to cool it back down. Did we save anything? Customer didn't save anything, but we saved the peak.
yeah, that's
Is
what
that-
you're doing.
okay.
You're-
It's not gonna save the customer
Yeah.
dollars, because it's gonna have to run to cool it
So
back down.
that's kind of what will bring up the electric vehicle charge.
You're only shutting it off for 15 minutes at a
Yeah.
time. So I mean, even if you shut off your water heater for 15 minutes, unless somebody's actually in the shower, taking a shower. I mean, I had it on my house over here on 6th Street for 5 years, never knew it was even working.
So the only example I've ever had of this is I was at my sister-in-law's place, and the whole bunch of us were there, and we were getting ready to go somewhere, and we ran out of hot water.
Mhm.
And she said she could call the city and say, hey, I'm gonna have, because they're a house of 2. And when you roll in with 6 more people, she said, yeah, a couple times a year they could call the city and they could waive that. Will we have, or do we have something like that also?
You can opt each account out on there.
If they have a big company coming for whatever, just
Yeah.
call the city.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, it's user friendly enough, I don't say it's user friendly, but it's got enough, I guess, perks in there where, yeah, like holiday season, you don't shut them off, you know, you say, well, we won't have an event during Christmas for these 4 days, or Thanksgiving, whatever it may be, you know, we can take those events off and not let it run and stuff like that with it. And kind of answer your question about that, I mean, it's kind of an application as far as you're kicking it down the curb, and it's like with the vehicle chargers. You don't want somebody to get off work at 5, everybody comes in, plugs their car in, because then it's gonna really hamper it up, but nobody's using electricity from 11, really using electricity from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. in the morning, so you're trying to bring that load. You don't want big humps in your system, you just want kind of an even keel type of thing, so yeah, you're trying to move that load down on there. I mean, that's kind of where it goes.
Kurt or Troy, somebody maybe can answer a question for me. Every year, we get basically power from WAPTA, whatever. Does that increase over the years,
No,
the amount we're allowed?
no,
We're stuck with only this amount as if it was in the 60s?
it's a set amount. Set amount of power, and anything over that, then MRA is kicks in.
The reason I'm asking is because we're using a lot more power nowadays than we did back in the 60s. I mean,
Actually, you're not. You're using less power because motors are more efficient, there's different kinds of start switches on them, there's VFDs, there's all these kinds of stuff that controls
Okay.
how much,
can be out there.
your, actually our power consumption. You got hot water heaters that go to like 98% efficient. You got a lot of people that are taking out baseboard heat. There's a lot of people in winter in the last couple of years that have switched over to propane. versus electric. So we're actually way more efficient than we were back in the sixties because
So my
technology.
layman understanding of the WAPA power allotment, 1946 or whenever the dam was put in, the government came around and came to the city winner, and our forefathers were intuitive enough to say, yes, sign us up, we want this. And they needed this, but they were able to take this, request a bigger power band than what we actually needed at that time, which turned out to be a good thing. Am I all wet, or I remember incorrectly, or?
WAPA said, we will give you this,
Right.
but we won't give you any more.
But back when it first came out, so the city went ahead and said they took it all, but even though they weren't using it all at the way beginning, they still said, yeah, we want the full load, full allotment, which was smart by Walter Schramm or whoever.
So Chandra was just saying, comparing our allotment from WAPA to all the cities around here, our contract is, we have a higher allotment than anybody,
That's
which is
kind of
what
what
you're
I'm saying,
referring
Is
to.
it based on population?
At that time, no, it was a negotiation, and like
Somebody
he
and
said,
somebody,
somebody got us a huge allotment.
I'm guessing it was probably based on, a lot of it had to do with what the population of the town was.
1946 was much higher than it is now. In 1946, we were at over 3,000.
Well, just wondered, like I said, some of these towns are growing rapidly. Are they're gonna have to have more power.
Troy talks about it all the time, I think CJ does. They want as much power as they can get from the grid to pull back to the east, where you are seeing huge population growth, business growth.
MRES gets their power from, MRES, they actually get an allotment from WAPA also. They also have their own dams, and they also have wind generation, and they also have a, I think they have a
Coal.
coal plant out in
They have
Wyoming.
big coal, that's where.
And they have a gas plant over here somewhere up north. But, so they buy and sell on the, they're kind of like a electrical broker, so to speak. But, so they buy and sell power off the grid all the time, and that's where we get ours, so. We don't use, Kurt and I, looking at our history over the last 10 years, a lot of months, we never use MRS. We're 100%.
2 months out of the year that we don't use them
Right.
on there, but
Several, but it's very, very
little on there, but, if you're selling power, making a penny at the end of the day, you're still making money, on buying that power, so, with it, but that's kind of, so, you get in the winter months, I think last year's winter peak was like 11.5 megs was our highest usage.
It's pretty high when our average is
Doubling
what?
it. I was very surprised that it doubled that hard on
Yeah.
there. I was very surprised about that.
Yeah. Most days, average days, what are we, 6 to 7?
Like when we were out there in that substation that day, that was
7.1.
like 7.2 or
Yeah.
something like that we were using, which was kind of like an 80-degree day. It wasn't nothing hot or cold by any means.
WAPA allotments are done. There's no more to be granted, correct? So as I'm gonna use an example, T grows. They're not getting WAPA power. They gotta get it from somewhere else, right? And I know, when power's on the grid, power's on the grid, but I mean the WAPA allotment. As the city grows, they're not allowing them more WAPA allotments, are they?
So, yeah, T was a municipality. T's either Excel or it's a co-op. So the co-ops get a little bit of allotment too from WAPA, and then they buy a lot of their power from Basin, which is kind of like a Missouri River, but it's a co-op type of thing. It's the Touchstone Energy portion of it. No, like WAPA does, they have a diesel generation plant. They got a natural gas one too on there, but they're not really, I don't want to say they're not, but that type of thing, people are having to come up with different ways if they need more power to do it, like, I think another one was it Northwestern Energy was talking about building a nuclear plant, I think. They're trying to figure out different ways to generate more power. Excel, they're trying to do solar and wind and everything like that, but they have nuclear plants, you know, that's kind of what feeds Sioux Falls.
I was gonna say,
really.
we need to build the nuclear plant.
On there and stuff like that, so I mean, that's what they're trying to do, is come up with different ways as far as.
Nuclear is the cleanest energy, easiest energy
Until
out
it
there.
melts down, yeah.
How many have,
Couple. So if we got 10 minutes, I can steal from you guys or whatever it is.
you have 8.
Huh?
8.
8, okay,
Yeah.
8 minutes and whatever. Someone at this table, other than myself, knows how this works. And I'm on a refresher course, and if the public watches, I'm sure they could use a refresher course. You hear the horror stories about going over peak. And once you're over peak, is your bill hit there for a month, 3 months? How's that work and so forth? Because that's blood.
The billing side?
Yes.
Yep, what the customer pays,
Do you want it or you
not the physical mechanics of it,
Okay.
the billing.
So if you hit peak, if you hit over
1 minute,
25
1 day, 1 hour, how long do you have to hit peak?
It's
Just hit it.
KW is what
KW,
they're
okay, so if you
charging.
hit 25 KW, 3 months out of the previous 12 months, then you are on the large commercial.
Gotta ask you a question here. 1 minute, 1 second, 1 hour, when you hit it, it's
One time,
just for 1 second.
Yep.
Your demand is above that.
yep.
So if
You
try-
put 20 pot roasters in,
Yeah,
50
you're
of
gonna
them, you're gonna hit it.
So we only have that
On commercial?
on commercial.
Okay,
That's
at home, I
correct.
could do whatever, and it doesn't matter, it's only commercials.
Yep,
can
you
track
only
it,
get
though.
charged differently on commercial.
Okay,
You hit it 3 times in a 12-month period, you're automatically going to be on large commercial for the next year. We do watch that in our office, we have we have some accounts that you know that it's always gonna be large commercial because they always hit it. There are a few out there that go back and forth, and so we do watch them. Or some that are only hitting it during specific times of year, and so we have to really watch them too. We've had some that were always on large commercial that actually ended up going back to small commercial. Now, there are some accounts that are in that wishy-washy stage. It's actually cheaper for them to be on large commercial than it is small commercial. Yes, they're paying for the peak, but they're paying less than half of what their KWH is. So right now, you charge small commercial and residential over 11 cents KWH. Your large commercial is only getting charged 5 cents. But then they're paying for that demand. But if they don't hit, so they only hit it for those 3 months, and the rest of the months out of the year, it's very, very minimal, it's cheaper for them that way. Now, if they're always constantly just getting really close to that 25, then it's gonna pretty well wash even.
so if they hit it 3 consecutive months, they're put on the large commercial for the year.
It doesn't even
That
have to be
makes it-
consecutive, 3 months out of 12.
Any,
Then the following
any
year-
running 12.
Then
Any
the,
running 12, so let's say you hit it in January, July, and December, it has to be 3 months within the 12-month period. And so you might, so if you never hit it again and January falls off, now you've only got 2 months on there, then you can go down to that small commercial.
oh, okay, so if it's February, November, January, they're on it until you get to that next,
Yep, till it falls
the
off.
next month where you're on it and you don't hit it, then you drop back down.
Throughout a 12-month period, it's rolling 12 months.
That clarified, because I always thought, once you hit your peak, you were stuck at that peak just for that month, the rest of the month, so, yeah, you're not, you're stuck for more.
If you stay underneath that 25 KW, you'll stay on small commercial. That's not a problem. But if you hit it 3 times in 12 months, 25 or above, then that's when it rolls over to the large commercial.
So what if you put in more than 1 meter in a building?
Yeah, something like that. They just have multiple small commercial accounts.
But that helps them keep off the peak to it.
Theoretically, it would, wouldn't it?
Well, it depends on what's in that, I guess, as far as what this meter's doing. I mean, it could hit on the 1 meter if you're, well, I'm gonna try to get around it, but this one's, you're running motors of some sort. that meter's gonna see it, where you're off on that one. It kinda depends. I mean, most of the time you see that in application with like office buildings. 3 different meters so you can charge out each attendant or something like that, so I doubt they would be hitting a peak, but they would probably fall underneath
I've
the
seen
small
it both
commercial
ways.
on there.
Both ways where they have multiple meters, but one meter is still hitting that large commercial. So you've got a large commercial charge on your account and on this one, I'm thinking of 2 small commercial charges. I've also seen it where, and this is not a conversation I've had with Kurt, so please understand that, but previous supervisors where they've had 4 different meters in one area, and they said, you know, if they were on 1 meter, they would be hitting it. But they have 4 meters, and that's how it was set up, and they'd have to pay an electrician to change it at this point in time.
Do we have our electrical rates on CPI now or not?
Your minimum is on CPI each year, your usage is on CPI 1/2 each year. Your water and sewer is the same, the only one that's not set up on that is sanitation.
Because we've heard there's people in the community that think we need to take a rate increase on the electricity, and we've set it to be less incremental, right?
Our
Incremental,
formula
less
is
impact.
incremental,
Yeah.
small. That
Without-
individual wanted to jump it 33% again, and I'm like, no, we don't need to do that. Yes, there are communities that charge a lot more than us, and trust me, when I heard that, it was refreshing to finally hear somebody research rates outside of winter and understand that ours are in that 45 to 55 percentile. We're in the middle, quite honestly. There are some lower. But
So we actually had somebody come in the other day and said, there's no way, I've got a house out in the country and I've got a house here. This bill is this much, this bill is this much, the city is much higher. I don't know if you were in there for that conversation after, and I said, well, actually, our rates are lower. It's just, it has to do with the house, every house is different. If you have something old, a refrigerator that's old and constantly running, it's gonna raise your usage. They're not looking at the usage amount, they're just looking at the final dollar amount, and that's where you really have to.
They're not looking at the rate, they're looking at the total dollar.
Correct.
Yeah, and they're not looking at the UCG.
Correct. The usage is on the individual. We can't control, other than with load management, we can't control what they use in their home.
All right. Troy, what else you got?
Nothing. I gotta get going, I got a busy day.
Yep, so do I.
CJ?
1 minute left.
I'm good.
Good.
Don't want to go to 14 cents a kilowatt hour?
No.
We gotta
No.
trench in that water line for elevator.
I know.
Done, and
That